Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here to this, which is, I won't say the last event, but yes, it is the last event of our Heinrich Böll Festival 2024. You're all very welcome to the Achill Writers event, which we're very grateful to the Heinrich Böll Association for including our Achill Writers as part of the weekend. Who are Achill Writers? Achill Writers are an amalgam of people who sometimes come together to write, to share their work. Sometimes we don't, because maybe we're scattered all around the country. But what holds us together is the very fact that we write. When we do come together, we share our work, we support one another. So this afternoon you will hear 7 writers who are going to share some of their work. And they all have connections to Achill. And that's really what's really Achill and writer. Those two things go together, so Achill Writers. So to begin, I would first of all like to welcome our 2 musicians. And maybe for them to play a little tune before we begin.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. So to begin our afternoon of readings, I would like to introduce Martina O'Connor. Martina is a member of Achill Writers. Martina describes her writing style as painting with words. She draws inspiration from a wide range of artistic forms, including painting, photography, film, and multimedia, to create atmospheric and sensory-rich poems and short stories. Martina.
Hello, and to start with, thank you very much, Heinrich Böll Committee, again for hosting us. It's such a pleasure to come back every year, year after year, and see all the people visiting the island. Welcome to those also. Heinrich Böll Weekend is for me always the highlight of the cultural year, in a way, and the start of summer, which also helps. As we conclude the weekend, I would like to remind us of the theme for this weekend: language as the stronghold of freedom. The theme echoes a quote from a profound speech Heinrich Böll delivered in 1958 upon accepting a cultural award from the city of Wuppertal. Böll proceeded with his speech. We understand that a conversation, a secretly shared poem, might become more precious than bread. Words have power. This is known to us through direct experience. Words can set the stage for and initiate war, and it's not always through words that peace is forged. In the grasp of the unscrupulous demagogue, the mere strategist, the opportunist, words can lead to the death of millions. The opinion-shaping machine, here he referred to the mass media, can discharge words as rapidly as a machine gun firing bullets. This weekend we have been confronted with the troubling developments around the world. Political, humanitarian crises are escalating, human rights are increasingly under threat again, and issues of polarization and misinformation prevail. And we listened to concerned voices of participants and writers alike. Let us not forget, Heinrich Böll also said, and I quote him in German, "Wir Autoren sind die geborenen Einmischer." We authors are born meddlers. In the spirit of Heinrich Böll and with my contribution to the readings, I call upon all writers, we will not stay silent, we will meddle. Here comes my quote. An ode to us writers. Words are beautiful. I paint them. I paint you, I paint us with words. I paint with words, naked words, bare but naked words, on the canvas of this world around us, which I see full of fears and joys. I paint light, I paint shadows, I paint beliefs, sympathies, seduction, senses, and affection. My colors are my mind, my gut, my belly, my flesh, my heart, my blood, me exploding. Words are powerful. So, hand me the palette knife to slice through shards of information and colored feelings, to gut pain and joy, to destroy fear and misinformation, and in eager anticipation evoke the journey to hell and back again from this outraged ecstasy. My pen draws the line, one never-ending firm stroke, this horizon of truth. Every day, every morning, every hour, every eternal hour, I wake up. And with the universe embracing me, I awake the universe in me to write. And while the words, the naked words, flood me, messages of what is meant to be, what will come, pour over me like water. Not drizzle, not rain, buckets and buckets, never-ending streams of water. I urge you, my fellow writers, dilute and spread these colors of life on the canvas of the world around us, like the floods drowning us from within. Let us paint this world alive. Thank you.
pause a moment and reflect on what Martina's poem contains. It's worth reflecting on. Thank you, Martina. Up next is Mary Berkery. Mary is a coach, author, and speaker. She is the author of On Earth, Poems as Presents in a Changing World, and Saved by a Horse, Stories of Love, Healing, and Transformation Through Horses. She is a TED speaker, Horses as Mirrors. Mary lives in Achill and assists people access their inner power in person and online, and runs group residential retreats. The title of Mary's piece is Words Matter. Mary, please.
And can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? We were asked to write on the theme of language as a bulwark for freedom. So here goes. Let me get my glasses. My father summoned his 3 daughters together. I want to have a chat with you, he said. I wondered and worried about what I did wrong to warrant such a command. He rolled his freshly cut tobacco and slowly filled his pipe as we sat in silence watching him. Before lighting, he looked at us saying, I want to talk about something that is important. You are young women starting to step out into the world, as he pointed his curved pipe stem, it seemed, over our life's path ahead. You will make money, you may lose it, even all of it. You will have friends, but friends will change or drift away. Those you love may die or move on. You have no control at most over these situations. But remember this, there is one thing you have control over, and that is your word. That only you can give away. So be clear with your yeses and nos. Stay true to what you say and mean it. Strive to honor your word and hold yourself accountable for what you speak of and agree to. That honor is what you have power over. Let what you voice come from a place of courage and conviction inside you, and not from what you think others want you to hear. If you dilute what is right for you, you give your word away. My father himself was a man who called a spade a spade. People came from far and wide to be advised by him. They knew that he would give an honest appraisal of their inquiries and that they could trust him. In a world of fake news and untruths, words are diluted and manipulated and used in ways to gain external power and prestige. Trust in the political, financial, religious, and even medical systems has eroded. People at most are confused and not sure of who or what to believe in anymore. I ask, how can trust be restored? I realize that it is the poet, the writer, the storyteller, the songwriter, the artist and filmmaker who can restore the purity and power of words and use language as a bulwark for personal and political sovereignty. In times of global adversity and injustice, words spoken in truth have the power to challenge oppressive systems and mobilize for change. Through language, we can raise awareness about social issues, galvanise others to action, and demand accountability for those in positions of authority. Language is also a tool for insight, motivation, and expansion, especially in times of personal change and turmoil. In the self-inquiry and personal development worlds, a book, a poem, a story can open up other ways to see, feel, and believe in oneself. As Sigmund Freud said, "Everywhere I go, I find a poet has been there before me." In my work of assisting people access inner resilience in times of personal and professional change, I regularly use a poem or a story to support the process. The final line of one of my poems, Autumn, written during an internal winter time of my life: "Spring will come, it always does." It gave me at the time, and now others, hope in uncertainty, and believing that, like the winter time, this too will pass. That advice from my father, now over 40 years ago, was a defining moment. It helped shape my identity. It allowed me to question the status quo, to find what I value and stand for. I now know that in an uncertain world, the honourable friends, those fearless, heart-opening wordsmiths, are the ones who name what is unacceptable and who can build trust in humanity, inspire others, and offer a vision for a world worth living in. Thank you.
To offer a vision of a world worth living in. Words to carry with us. Thank you, Mary. Up next is Zan Sinnott. Zan is a retired teacher. She is married and has 4 adult sons. Since, and I am loath to use the R word, retiring, I gloss over that very quickly. She has written and self-published 2 novels and 1 book of short stories. Zan will read one of the short stories entitled Match of the Day. Thank you, Zan.
Before I start, I'd just like to say how impressed I was with the words of the other readers, because words matter. And these words I'm going to read are words and how children interpret them and how children feel, because whatever about all of us, children are the future. So they're very important. We started out with the best of intentions. At the time we were young, too young to know any better. My brother Colin was 12 at the time. I was 10. There were only the 2 of us and our ma in the house. Our da had left us, or as Colin put it, had buggered off. Anyway, he was gone. I missed him sometimes, but I didn't miss the fights. They were awful. At first, our ma seemed pleased that he was gone, but then she started to get sad. We'd find her crying in the kitchen and ask her what was wrong. She'd answer that it was only the onions. Didn't we know that chopping onions always made people cry? I said this to Colin, but he just answered, "You don't put onions in a cake, you dope." I suppose that was my first cookery lesson. Colin and I discussed the situation in bed that night. We shared a bedroom. The apartment only had 2 bedrooms. Anyway, I liked sharing a room with my brother. I couldn't imagine being on my own. We used to have bunks, but Colin got too tall and used to hit his head off the ceiling when he sat up. I always slept on the bottom bunk because, first of all, I needed to be able to get out of bed easily to get to the toilet, and secondly, because Colin wanted to be on top. And he always got his way. He's like that. Anyway, we were talking about our mother crying when we were in bed, and Colm said, "It's probably because she's lonely." "But she has us," I replied. "I mean, lonely for boyfriend," Colm said. "Women want a fella. I saw that on television. They want all that kissing stuff. It makes them feel good." "And would Ma stop being sad and crying and all if she had a boyfriend?" I asked. "Well, it might help. She mightn't be as lonely." "So how does she get one?" I knew that Colm would know. "We'll have to get one for her. She's too sad to get one for herself," Colm decided. I had complete faith in my older brother. We came up with a plan in the next few days. First of all, we had to think of who would be a suitable person to be a boyfriend. Then we had to think of how we would get that person to meet our ma. "What about Mr. Kelly?" I said to Colm. Mr. Kelly lived next door. "Jesus, Finto, he's ancient. We have to think of someone younger than Mr. Kelly." "Well, can you think of someone, Mr. Smarty Pants?" I asked. Colm said he was trying. I raced home from school the next day. Colm had gone home earlier. I had to stay for training. I burst into the kitchen. "Where's Colm, Ma? I have to see him." "What's the hurry, Finn? He's in his room, I think." I ran into our bedroom where Colm was doing his homework. "Colm, I found him. I found the perfect person for Ma." "Shush, Finto, she'll hear you. Sit down and tell me quietly." I told Colm about the new substitute teacher who had arrived in my class that day. "He's perfect, Colm. He's young, he's dead cool, and he's really funny. He tells jokes all the time." "So how do you plan on getting him to meet Ma?" asked Colm. I don't know. Thought maybe you'd know," I replied. "Well, for a start, what's his name?" asked Colm. "Mr. Bumford. Funny name, isn't it?" And I laughed. "Can you think of how you can get Ma to meet your Mr. Bumford?" asked Colm, giggling. "I know. I'll pretend to be sick in class. Then they'll send for Ma and she'll meet him. Simple." I put the plan into action the next day. During the morning class, I put up my hand and said that I was feeling sick. Mr. Bumford told me to go to the principal's office. The principal rang my mother, who explained that she had to leave work and would take some time to get to the school. She eventually arrived and came to the principal's office. After a few minutes, she got up to leave, telling me to come along, and I thought quickly of how I could delay her and get her face to face with my teacher. I told her as we went down the corridor that I had to pick up my school bag. In the classroom, she told me to hurry up and get it. I pretended that I felt sick again. This time I even said that I felt dizzy. And so Ma said that she'd pick up my bag for me. I scurried along behind her to see that reaction when she met Mr. Bumford. Politely knocking on the door, she waited until he answered and said, "Hello, I'm Finton's mother. I just want to pick up his bag as I'm taking him home early. He doesn't seem to be very well. I hope that's okay." "Oh, Finton, how will we ever survive without you?" Mr. Bumford quipped loudly, making sure the class heard him. The class laughed. I wanted to join in, but reckoned Ma wouldn't believe in my fictional illness if I did. My mother, unsmiling, took the bag and left. As she went down the corridor, I heard her mutter, "Feckin' idiot." While we waited for a bus, I asked Ma what she thought of my new substitute teacher. "Well, Finn," she replied, "he reminds me of why I don't want any bloody self-centred man in my life again. I can do without any of that, thanks." When I reported what had happened to Colm and Ma's response to Mr. Bumford, we decided to abandon our plan and buy her weekly chocolates instead.
chocolates are much cheaper too. Could I ask our two musicians maybe to play a piece in between? Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Cathy O'Loughlin to read. Cathy, after retiring from business, she and her husband moved to Achill. They now live part-time in Achill and only when necessary go to Selbridge. They have 4 daughters and 6 grandchildren. So Cathy, who is another Achill writer, you're welcome.
Yeah, no dancing. Thank you, Heinrich Böll. During the 1950s, when Heinrich Böll was holidaying or staying in Achill, I was enjoying my summer holidays in the nearby Bangareras, in a village called Cluntakilla. We used to go there every summer to my uncle and aunt, and this is a favourite person of mine. It was a favourite person of mine in my life. Bending down now, his body shrunken and bent from all his years of hard work on the farm and in English building sites. It didn't seem fair. I remember him so clearly. He would bring us city kids to the bog on his horse and cart to show us the cutting and saving of the turf. The cart made such a thunderous noise going in and out of holes in the old bog road. He would shout, woe to Rose as he would try to navigate his way. He wore a handkerchief on his head to protect himself from the hot sun and the midges. After an hour or so of his back-breaking work whilst we played on the bog, picking bog cotton and imagining fairies jumping in and out of the fairy homes, he would have a break and join us sitting on the soft peat. I clearly remember that tea and soda bread that his wife Mary made. He had a little garden at the bottom of the field called Larrigan, a quiet place where he would grow vegetables. This little garden was a haven. It was a haven or a zen place for him in those days. There was a little stream running along the edge of the garden where large leafy green ferns grew alongside my favourite flowers, Montbretia. Even as a young child, I loved that place. I would sit there quietly, daydreaming and watch him work. I never thought of helping him, and he never asked. It was his place to get away from everyone and have a bit of peace. During the summer, we were brought to the fields to shake out the hay and to help make haycocks. We would make cars in the hay, whilst all the adults turned the hay to assist drying. At the end of the day's work, the adults would load the dry haycocks into the cart. He would help us climb to the top of the haystack and bring us back up the hill to the house, to the hay shed at the back of the house. His wife followed with her rosary beads at hand, praying that we would not fall off. In the evening, we would sit around the large kitchen table and have the most delicious fluffy potatoes served in a large wicker basket, grown by him in his lovely garden, with soft boiled bacon and soft cabbage. The leftovers were given to the dogs and chickens. Later, as the night drew in, he would light the oil lamps and we would all sit beside the great turf fire and he would tell stories of old. For the winter months he went to England on the mailboat with his old suitcase tied with a leather belt to work on building sites. After his time in England, he would return home to Ireland, stopping off at our house in Dublin for the night before he took the long journey back to Mayo to his wife and 5 children. He was our uncle, but since our father had died at a very young age, he became our father figure, showing us much love, kindness and generosity. When I mentioned to my aunt, his sister, that he was a favourite person of mine, she said, "Oh, he was an awful cranky child." Then she didn't know him like we did. She was just jealous that we didn't choose her as our favourite. That's it.
Thank you, Kathy. Always good to have a favourite uncle or aunt or special person. I'd like to invite Siobhan Flynn up next. Siobhan is a writer, poet. Siobhan won the Courch New Writing Poetry Prize for 2023 and also the Poetry Ireland Introductory Award 2023. Siobhan has been coming to the Heinrich Böll Weekend over a long period of time, and it gives me great pleasure to invite her to read with us now.
I thought this poem spoke to the theme of this year's Böll Weekend. It's called Colourful Language. There was no word because there was no thing. Tamil Naram, Persian Narang, travelled the Silk Road. Arabic Naranj changed to Naranka as the Moors irrigated the arid plains of Spain into cultivated gardens, introducing oranges, a new exotic word to name a new exotic fruit. The word became a colour. Pigments were invented, realgar and orpiment made from arsenic, essential for the brilliance of the Renaissance, sold by Venetian vende colori to enrich the painted robes of aristocrats and to lint the hair of goddesses. Into this glory another word was born. The Jews of Venice contained in a small area known as the New Foundry. In Venice, in Venetian, Ghetto Novo. The ghetto was closed from 6 in the evening until noon the next day, the surrounding canals patrolled by boats of Christian guards. Today, bright colours are everywhere. Oranges in the supermarket, the exotic is mundane. Now, words shift, insinuate. Our seas are safeguarded from illegal migration. Meaning is camouflaged and language becomes silently colour-coded, like the difference between expats and immigrants. And I'll just leave you with a story that happened, was it last year, I think, or the year before? I was at Scollachla, and myself and my friend Maureen went over to Ballycroy National Park, and I had an electric car and I was trying to charge it over there, and it all became very complicated, but the man over there couldn't have been more helpful, and it turned out that he was also a poet. So this is called Getting a Charge in Ballycroy National Park. This is big sky country, and at night it's dark, officially gold tier standard dark. But now the sun is leaking through the clouds as we attempt to get the EV charger working. The man from the visitor centre couldn't be more helpful. He tries everything. I invoke the dark gods of the bog, wonder who would be the patron saint of electricity. He tells a story about St. Patrick and lightning, so we give him a try, but no joy. So turn to poetry instead. He gives us a poem about the dark and his mother and being safe in bed, and then one about Achill, where he met his wife. I am filled up with words and rhythm and charm, better than any amount of kilowatt hours.
So I want to introduce next one of our own, Sean O'Malley. When I say one of our own, he's a member of the Heinrich Böll Committee. Sean describes himself as a writer who lives on Achill. And the title of Sean's piece is The Egg Inside the Bird. Sean.
Hello, everybody. Throughout this weekend, our theme has been language as a bulwark of freedom. There have been interesting discussions on this theme, on groupthink, on freedom. Freedom can rarely stand alone, though, as a word. Should it be freedom from or freedom to? My poem tries to create images that show something of language, the darkness or shimmer of words' meanings, the points at which language fails or breaks down, when the relationship between citizen and state, individual freedom and civic duty needs clarity of language the most. On a continuous line, connecting these 2 points of serious gravity, individual freedom and civic duty, the extremes at either end are unbearable. Chaos with Malthusian struggle at one end, but still the ties of family and tribe would push away from the pole of absolute individualism. At the opposite end, the Spartan state with its fascist certainty. But I imagine these poles connected and spinning, not around a bland middle, but a necessary focus of urgency. If we don't get the focus correct, we'll spin together, all of us and all of our futures, out of control. The same words in different mouths, languages, accents, can have completely different meanings. If violence is to be kept out of the conversation, we must concentrate on the words, understand the language, the meanings. That can only be done through respectful listening, inquiring dialogue, but also with the urgency that comes from the fear of what can happen if we don't listen. But there surely must come at certain points singularities of meaning that demarcate, that divide, that are boundaries that will not be crossed. These boundaries are real and demand judgment. Who is the final judge? To whom or to what do we hand over our futures? My poem is called The Egg Inside a Bird. The pressure is changing. You can see it in the horizon's clouds, slowly roiling upwards, pulling the sea up like a veil over Clare Island. Low pressure, an anti-clockwise reversal of time, the sun falling into the rising clouds, the blurring horizon tipping upwards, tilting the tide to flow quickly towards me. That oldest fear, that the sun will never rise again, that tomorrow will be blackness, crawls out from somewhere deep within. What sacrifice, what incantation, what words of evocation will please the sun, entice it back? Our planet is not Earth, it is ocean. It is always the water that disturbs these thoughts, as its surface stops reflecting the daylight sky and assumes its true darkness. Stars are not reflected in broken waves. Light years away, it is a darkness that spins the Milky Way, fire and dust in balance around a twisting void. The ancient light that writes our sky is beautiful, catches the eye, entrances in wonderment. But it is the darkness that it flows across that overwhelms. Every point of light is travelling from extinction, a memory from time already past and gone. Watching, we're waiting for the final wink into darkness, the erasure of constellations and meanings, there, then not there. Low pressure spins faster and approaches the land. My phone shivers and warns of a tidal surge. Black billowing clouds are now ahead and over me. Rising winds and rain force me back from the sand. Certain steps would bring me safe to the road, but fear and hurry blind my judgment. Misstepping from a solid rock onto shifting stones, I turn my ankle, stumble, and in anger hurl a sea-smooth pebble back into the never-ceasing waves. A shadow of grey, tiny birds scuttle from the thrown stone and out of the rack at the water's edge, and on a signal unintelligible to me, rise as one and flee as cloud above me. With a lonely sound, so full of anguish and displacement echoing in their wake. The true name of these birds escapes me, as it has so often in the past. The glow from my phone again alerts me, shows me the progress of the storm approaching, the startling emptiness at its centre and its feathering arms, swirling and caressing the land as it blindly moves. It is early summer, and I know that in being forced to abandon its nest, the egg inside a bird is hurled towards some unknown horizon.
Here's something to think about you haven't thought about before. Our planet is not Earth, it is water, or ocean. That's something to take home with you. Have a little bit more music. the last offering of the evening, and it's my féin. I'm an Achill writer also. My name is Sheila. And yesterday, in light of the screening of the documentary on Finbar Cafferkey, I remembered that I had written a poem in April last year on hearing of that Finbar was missing, and I wrote this poem, or this poem wrote through me, and I dedicated it to Maeve. But it wasn't the poem, or it's not the poem that I wrote on the theme, but I remembered it yesterday, and I called it Between Tides. Shoulders, torsos, red from the cold Atlantic waters, moved along the shoreline. Immerse, moving silently, heads bobbing in the water. Swimmers in synchronized time break through the cold barrier. Late for the Tuesday swim at Comporth, she stumbled over rocks to the water's edge, unnoticed. Numb to the single-digit temperature of the familiar sea, it crept up her bare legs, thighs. She froze, held fast by an unfamiliar fear, wanted to swim in the safety of this harbour, of her friends, in this place of her ancestors, to drown the news she did not want to hear. They waved, waded towards her. A name punctuated her tears. Finbar. Felt a brother's loss in the deep undertow, threatened to pull her under. They nudged her gently into deeper waters, surrounded her cursed spirit with their presence. She wailed, thrashed her way through the pain her body could not deny. Tears and salt sea melded. She dived deep, surfaced, tried to stand, lost her footing, floated in watery memories. Another sea, another shore, the Aegean. A quiet, silent, bearded man. Waist deep, she saw him, pull crowded rafts ashore, cradle a dead baby in his strong Achill arms, wrap a weeping mother in his net of safety. Fearless, she saw him walk with those who had fled violence, sought freedom in countries she heard on the news. Afghanistan, Syria, the Ukraine. Walking into her classroom, she met the vacant eyes of her Ukrainian pupils. She'd learned their language overnight in one brief text message. Missing, presumed dead. A shared language of grief and loss. Okay, and thank you for allowing me to read. Okay, this is the one that I had written in response to the theme of this weekend, and it's called Choreography of Silence. He sits hunched at the kitchen table, repeating the same old story. What is it that you're trying to say? I ask. A silence so long I thought he was not breathing. He began again, a tremor in his voice. The tide is turning. How to unlearn the story I have lived inside. A story that is not true to who I am. A story with consequences. Lost his job during lockdown, refused to be silenced, lost his home too. Alone, his will to live near broken. He breathed deeply, stood up, extended the fullness of his tall frame, pushed the chair under the table, and began to dance. Surprised, I stepped aside, gave him space. His body moved to a rhythm of music I could not hear. fluid and quiet. He removed his jacket. I didn't know you liked to dance. It's what saved me. Breathing to the rhythm of the tides, stopping at the still point of the turning, he said. I opened the window wide. The sound of waves driven by the incoming tide filled the room. He upped the tempo. A freshening breeze tossed his greying hair as arms and legs moved in unison. A seldom seen smile lit up his face. He paused mid-stride, turns. Scattered on the table some printed pages, annotated in his handwriting. Handing me the title page, asked, "Do you know it?" I nodded my head. Merke's collected silences. A splicing of generations joined the dance. A woman of undetermined years moves graciously around the garden below, butterfly net in her slender hands, capturing snatches of rare silence. Setting them free from the cacophony of sounds, they float upwards. It is hard to let go, he said with head bent, when the swirling current of distraction flooded the airways. We, blinded by deceiving backhanders, were bought without consent. His emotion was evident. Bent double by the pain of his own betrayal, slowly began to rise. Reaching his arms wide and upwards, a silent scream with a power so deep, I moved to catch him. Held, sighed, breathed as one, released. A mutual knowing flowed between us. Böll read the signs of his time and left us a reminder. Power always awaits an opportunity. Nodding towards the window, he said, "She knew it too, better than me. I suppose we've become choreographers of the silent dance of life, walking lightly amid the debris of accumulated loss." Maybe lockdown was necessary after all, I said, smiling. To remember our sovereignty, dear daughter, maybe it was. Thank you. Okay, that is the end of our writers' contribution to this event. I want to thank all of the writers who contributed here today. Very special, very privileged to have all of you. I would like to give all of them. To our two musicians. Yes. It's music and words that will continue to provide the dance that we can all dance to into the future. Okay, I've said enough. I would like to invite our chairperson, Kathleen, to say a few words before we finish up.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Just a few words of gratitude and farewell to you all at the close of the Achill Heinrich Böll Festival 2024. And indeed, how proud would Heinrich Böll be of our wonderful Achill Writers Group. Fantastic. A gracious thank you to all of our guests, our guest speakers, our participants and volunteers who helped us greatly this weekend. Thank you to our wonderful hard-working committee for making this weekend possible. Thank you to sound technician John McHugh and Sean Malloy of Blue Flag Media. And Sean will make all of the recordings available on the Achill Heinrich Böll Association website. Thank you to Deirdre, Joe and staff for their hospitality today, also to Kathy. And thank you indeed to Mother Nature for the good weather. Mind you, she didn't give us a motherly warning yesterday when she sent us a drop of rain, but nobody minded because we couldn't dampen the spirits of Michal's enthusiasm and expertise. And Mother Nature redeemed herself today when she sent us beautiful weather for Owen's Walk. I invite you to complete the online survey on our website because your feedback is very, very important to us. And our student prize-winning essays will also be made available on our website. As we reflect on our theme and on how we touch one another's lives this weekend, it is my hope for you all that all who touch your lives will do so with the best of care and concern. Best wishes too to our Mayo team today, and I wish to thank John and Diarmuid for providing the wonderful music. It adds so much always to our weekend, and I've been asked to thank John, who provided the transport all weekend. And John is blessed with such patience.
We enjoyed it.
Thank you also to all of you who made our weekend so special. As we say, go merimij bio ar nam shorish, that we may all be in it well and again, this time again. Now I'm going to invite John and Diarmuid to play out the Achill Heinrich Böll Festival 2024. Thank you all.